I say axe push, bad game mode, not gonna happen, but I would be very happy if they at least, and that's like the majority of the player base feels the same way. And it's not from like, this isn't just hive mind. Like everyone didn't really like push when it first came out. And it's not like something you got used to and you're like, yeah, this is better now. I like this. This is a good game mode. No, push was just from the beginning bad, and then as it kept going on, it kept getting worse. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that push in general. Obviously, the general consensus on push is that it's just not a fun game mode. And honestly, the reason why is it doesn't reward like the typical gameplay. Team play in push is very, very difficult to execute. If you can pull it off, obviously it's still rewarding in some way, but it's the way that the maps are made. It doesn't want you to push as a team, or it's really hard to move as a team and synchronize because of the way the payload moves and the way that players are able to flank the bot as they're pushing it. So what you see this happen all the time is like you cap the payload, the bot, all right, you start pushing it, all right, and usually it's one person pushing payload, like typically, you know, while everybody pushes up. Now the problem is when people push up into the area that they like, typically where the bot's going, the person on the payload always gets flanked, because the way that the map geometry works is that the person that's, while they're pushing the payload, the people that are attacking from the other side, and I could really show this on a better map. Let me do this, because it's the reason that, like, in my opinion, all the push game modes kind of suck. So the problem is when this payload starts moving, okay, as the team pushes up to like gain more ground for the for the bot to keep pushing, all these locations are able to be flanked on the person who's pushing the payload, just because that's how we're trained. You know, one person on the payload, everybody else is taking space, so you can continue pushing the payload. So I always say probably the best strategy is just have 5 people stacked on the payload, which honestly is a really boring way to play this game, right? You want to take angles, you want to set up for the push so your team can have a good spot. The problem is when you do that, you're leaving the person on the payload like stranded out to die, essentially. So that's why it's so back and forth on this map, and not because like it's balanced like that. It's because the person on the payload or the team up front pushing up always gets picked off because not everybody's there with them, or the person on the payload gets picked off because it's super easy to rotate on them, like anywhere. So that's the problem with this, like all these game modes, is that why you see it go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Oh, we won that fight. Oh, now we lose that fight. Oh, now we won this fight. Now we lose that fight. Problem is you're always fighting 4 up. Okay. Now, on escort maps, payload maps, whatever you want to call it, this isn't a problem because the person on the payload is typically farther back in the map, and it's very hard to get to that payload if you're the defenders. The attackers obviously can hold with 4 there without worrying about the person on the payload. Now, the problem with push now is that you also have to worry about the person on the payload. So now it's like, okay, well, do we push up and take space and lose our person on the payload? Or do we stack 5 on the payload and don't have any competitive advantage to continue taking space? So that's why literally anytime that you have capped the payload, you are immediately at a disadvantage unless you're just not pushing the payload. So that's why these game modes are so infuriating, because a lot of it is out of your control in most fights, because really it just comes down to, are they going to rotate on the person on the payload, or are they just going to pick off because it's a 4v5 in the front line? Like those are literally your 2 choices on push maps, and why it is so freaking annoying every time I play these maps, because it feels so out of your control. There's so little that is in your control. And then obviously now and then you get the one where teams are just better and they just roll it all the way through. That just comes down to them being a better team overall. But if it's an even matchup, dude, it's going to be this back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, until somebody eventually wins 2 fights. And then it's like, oh, well, now they lose. Sorry. There are competing priorities, and in a game of 5 randoms, there isn't natural group cadence, which is that's exactly what I was saying, is that when you're playing randomly, okay, you want the game to encourage you to play the way, like it should almost be easy or natural to play the game in a way that's team oriented. The game should literally, the mode should encourage you to play as a team, whether you know it or not. The problem with push is that it discourages you to play as a team, because really there's not really any way to play as a team. Like the only thing you can do is that's what I'm saying. If you are so tuned in with a team to the fact that you can put 1 person on payload, 1 person checking angles, 3 people just poking up front to like hold space for a little bit, and then the moment somebody pushes up on your front line, they back up and then fall back to payload. Now the problem with that is that, what Jay was saying, with 5 randoms, that shit doesn't work. Okay, you're never gonna have that kind of group cohesion in a game of 5 random people that are put into a game together. I don't care if they're GM, I don't care if they're top 500, I don't care if they're master or below, I don't care. You're not going to get that cohesion. So the problem is, anytime that anybody does anything, if it's not in that order to where your front line knows to back off when they push the person on payload, or to fall back when somebody rotates on the person on the payload, and then somebody's always checking flanks, like if you don't have that cohesion going on, like somebody's gonna die on the attacker side. Like defenders just have an advantage going into the fight immediately every time. So that's why this is back, forth, attack, defend, blah, 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 blah. That's what's so annoying about this game mode. And why, honestly, if they really want this to be good, they have to rework it. And the only way to rework it, from what I can see, is to change the map geometry. So instead of being like this 360 thing where flankers can come in, the person pushing the payload needs to be more defended naturally by cover. That means less flanks, less routes, much more payloady, much more linear of a map as you move these through. It's honestly just bad. And that's why I don't think push is going to be a popular game mode until they fix however they want to fix it, to make it to where teams actually just naturally, like a 5v5, it's actually enjoyable to go in, and you don't have to, you know, you can get rewarded for team play, but you can't just have it to where naturally the game's going to be that until whatever happens. Yeah, it's so highly sensitive to grouping and movement. Having to stand on a slow moving train and going through a series of prepared ambushes requires more discipline than the average player. Literally, that's it. That's what I'm saying. If you're pushing this payload, your team's going to push up. If they push up here, you can get rotated here and here. If they push up here, they can get rotated here and here. You know, and this happens all throughout the maps. Let's take the next point, for example. All right, here we go. You ready? No, Esperanza is bad too. Coliseum is probably the only one where it's like, okay. The moment you get it here, where can you get flanked from? Here. Or they can just rotate through the steps, flank you from behind. Super easy, by the way. They can play here and rotate like that. So easy. From the front, up top, up left. The person pushing the payload here, as your team pushes up to gain space, is now the most vulnerable. From here, 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 here. That's why this point right here is just so devastating to teams. So hard to take, because if you actually want like a better chance, like you just have to sit on the payload. Like literally idiots playing the game. You have to play like an idiot on this point. Here, like, okay, let me just stand here while they have high ground. Okay, let me just stand here while they're flanking us. Okay, let me just stand here while they're just barraging us down from the high ground. Because that's like literally the only way to like actually get through as a team, like maybe have a chance of doing it. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Yeah, that's why like when I'm playing here, I feel so out of control, because I'm like, dude, I literally can't play smart here. The best thing I can do is this, right? Wall off high ground as I stand on the low ground like an idiot. Use my wall to wall off like kind of here if somebody flanks before they like run around it and just shoot us from wherever. I can't push up because then I'm gonna lose my support from the back line. I can't take a flank because then I'm gonna get completely destroyed by, let's say it's a soldier, you know, on the flank. I might be able to pick him off myself, but it's literally just a 1v1. Comes down to a 1v1 fight. I'm going to be out of range for my supports. Unless my support does 180 and tries to pocket me while they're pushing the payload up here, which I don't know if you noticed, doesn't happen when you're playing with randoms, which I wouldn't either. Honestly, I would be worried about pocketing my tank who's taking space in the front line. Like, it's really hard to like do that shit. I don't know. Push maps infuriate me because they're just never fun. I don't think I've ever had fun on a push map yet. Like legitimate Overwatch fun, you know? Like I've had fun because we're like stomping a team. It's like, okay, cool, whatever. But it's like, I've never had like a fun map. Maybe Coliseum every now and then I'll have a good match, but Esperanza, New Queen Street, terrible. I hate it every time. Never fun.